All right, friends, welcome back to our online study in the book of Mark. And today we're going to be looking at the last two stories in chapter 10. And this is right before Jesus gets in Jerusalem, which is the last week of his life. So things really pick up pace then. The last two things that happen right before that. So they're super pivotal. And I think in many ways, they leave us asking ourselves a question right before we get into all of this Holy Week stuff, the last week of Jesus' life stuff. Leaves us with a question. So what I'm going to show you here is something that is happening on like the literal level, like the historical level, two things that happened right here in Jesus' life. But the two things that happened push us to a metaphorical level also, where we find ourselves asking a question of ourselves, okay? So that these two stories are back to back right before the triumphal entry, I think is intended by the author, inspired by the Spirit to leave you asking yourself a question. Here's what I want you to see. In both of these stories, Jesus asks the same question. Look at verse 36. And he said to them, this is to James and John, "What do you want me to do for you?" Then skip down. He now says to a blind man named Bartimaeus in verse 51, and Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" It's the same question. Very different circumstances. One, it's him speaking to two of his closest followers. One, it's him speaking to this man who is blind. Very different responses. What did James and John say? They say to the question, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." So what do they want? They want to share in Jesus' glory. They're asking for a place of prominence in the kingdom that he is establishing. What is it that Bartimaeus says? "Rabbi," or teacher, "let me recover my sight. I want to see." James and John, when Jesus says, what do you want? They ask for something for themselves. And they ask to share in that glory. Bartimaeus, out of his just place of desperation and need, asks to be able to see. I think we're meant, right before we get into this last week of Jesus' life, to ask ourselves the same question. What do we want from Jesus? If he were sitting down with you and he said, "All right, Matt, what do you want? What do you want?" What would I ask him for? Now, all of this is brought into even more sharp focus because these two stories come on the heels. They come right before the triumphal entry. They come on the heels of Jesus saying for a third time, we're going into Jerusalem. And when we get in there, the Son of Man, which he's talking about himself, is going to be killed. So right on the heels of that, you get James and John asking for what they're asking for. Bartimaeus asking for what he's asking for. What would you ask for? I will tell you, I'm more prone to ask for those things that would bring honor to myself or glory to myself than I am to just ask the simple prayer, "God, I want to see more clearly." Again, this is taking, Bartimaeus is a literal blind man asking for literal sight. We go to the metaphorical level and we ask God, I want to see the world more clearly. We've talked about this a lot in these Bible reading plans and in Cornerstone of the last couple of years. I want to see more clearly. I want to see the world, Jesus. I want to see the world the way that you see the world. I want my sight to be recovered. There is nothing wrong with, in fact, it is right to go to the Lord with our needs, to express to him the things that we desire, all all of those things. That's right. But if I search my heart, am I more like James and John, who really wants to be elevated myself? Or am I more like Bartimaeus, who just wants to see clearly? See myself clearly, see God clearly. See what God has asked me to do with my life clearly. So that's what I would invite you to do today. As you're reflecting on this, is just to spend a few moments in prayer. Nothing wrong with expressing your desires, but also spend some time just saying, Jesus, I want to see clearly. I want to see myself. I want to see other people the way that you see me, the way that you see them. Spend a little bit of time today just responding to that question. What do you want by saying, let me recover my sight? Let me see more clearly. God bless you, friends. Keep with your reading. We got the last third of this book ahead of us, and it is some of the just the richest stories, richest texts in the Gospel of Mark. So keep with it. See you next time.